Mobile operators in this morning asked more cooperation in the TLC ecosystem, maybe sharing the cost of investment in the network. And Mrs. Cruel, I met her in the morning, says that she's also very interested in cooperation in new business context. What do you think about? And another question, are you interested in Twitter? And do you have content?
First place, we love Twitter and I like to tweet. With respect to this question of cooperation, one of the most important things for us to do is to recognize that the investment cost of the operators is very, very high. And in particular in the wireless space, there's a real issue around wireless capacity. And you see this in many of the countries where there's explosion because the demands are going faster than the wireless capacity. So a couple things have to happen. First, governments have to make more bandwidth available. They need to reuse bandwidth that's inefficiently used to serve their citizens better. It's part of it. And that's occurring, but it's occurring, in my view, too slowly. The second thing is that we and others are sharing, for example, search revenue. When you search, you do a partnership with Google, we'll share in the search revenue on mobile devices, and that seems to help. A third thing that we need to do is to recognize that most people will operate in a world where there's a 3G, 4G, LTE frequency band, and also they'll have a Wi-Fi connection. So think of it as having phones that have an automatic ability to understand that if it's something that can be done in batch, it's done at night, or it's done in slow networks. To respect the cost and infrastructure and don't overload the big public networks. And all of that can be done relatively easily by technology. So I think that's a pretty good summary of where we are. Let's see, we had this question down here. Yes, yes, sir.
Sverker Brundin, Computer Sweden. I think people are a bit confused about the different versions of your operating systems. Android 2.3 for phones, 3.0 for tablets, and also the Chrome OS.
Okay.
When will we see devices with Chrome OS?
So I understand the confusion, and I do apologize for it. Sometimes these things occur because the teams are running so quickly. Today I'll use the commonly used names. We have an operating system called Gingerbread, which is the one for mobile phones. We have an operating system that's being previewed now, which you saw in demo, for tablets called Honeycomb. The two of them, notice that starts with a G, and then the next one starts with an H. You can imagine that the follow-on will start with an I, will be named after a dessert, and it will then combine the capabilities of both the G and the H releases. Okay, so hopefully that answers that question. These releases occur on a roughly 6-month cycle, so on the order of 6 months later. And you can find the technical details on our websites, and you'll see all the capability there. There's a separate effort called Chrome OS, which is unrelated in the following sense. Chrome OS is take Chrome and build a completely new operating system largely targeted at netbooks and PCs. So one way to understand the division right now is that if you are an Android user, you're going to be on a touch device, and if you're a Chrome OS user, you're likely to be on a keyboard device. We're working over time to get those technologies merged in the right way. I learned a long time ago, don't force technology to merge when it's not ready. Wait for the technology to mature to the point where it can be merged. Let's see, yes,
Hi Eric, this is Shaunak again. I had asked you a couple of questions last year. A couple of serious ones this time. The first one, what do you think of the WAC and the HTML5 standard with regards to mobile apps, of course? And the second one is on a more lighter note. Do you think Larry should have been here instead of you? And another lighter one.
Can we do that in order? Let's start with Larry. Part of the deal is when Larry Zerga and I talked about making things more efficient, Larry said, Eric, you get to fly around more. So the answer is he's extremely happy that I'm here. And Larry is probably asleep at the moment, but if he's waking up, he's busy working at his desk, working on products. So the division that we've always, we work as a triumvirate, and Sergey, of course, is working on a whole bunch of new issues, new opportunities, which you'll see. But the partitioning of external-internal is particularly comfortable for both Larry and me. So your first question had to do with HTML5. The HTML5 standard is evolving, and it looks to me like HTML5 will eventually become the way in which almost all applications will be built, including those for phones. There are some features missing, but it's getting there. And remember I said that it's taken 20 years to get to this point? It's because the underlying application standard had to aggregate, if you will, the capabilities that had evolved onto the proprietary Mac and Windows API frameworks. And what's interesting is that all of the vendors, including those with proprietary operating systems, have adopted HTML5 as their future direction. So there's and of course Google has already. So it's every reason to believe that eventually means some number of years from now, a lot of the applications you use will run on HTML5 in a mobile and non-mobile form. And that's another great simplification for developers and a good one. You had a third question?
Yes. The third one was, what are in terms of financial trends, what are you seeing with regards to your mobile advertising business?
Well, the thing that has always been most surprising to me is the monetization of the apps. I've been very impressed with the monetization of the apps in the Apple ecosystem, and we've seen a similar trend in the Android ecosystem. And that's very well, you always worry that's not going to happen. You always worry you're going to have really cute apps, but nobody will sell them. People are willing to pay for these applications. We purchased a company that was heavily involved in both Android and essentially the iOS system, and it's performed flawlessly for us. Let's see, more questions over here. Yes, sir.
Google has been very successful bringing intelligence to a consumer, and it has been very interesting. And also, we see Facebook has been very successful bringing emotional value to the marketplace, so we spend a lot of time in the social life. So what is your vision, how Google's is going to bring intelligence in the social life?
Well, in Google's case, we see ourselves as a platform, and with respect to social information, we would argue that if you're willing to give us this information, which again you have to choose to, we can make your search better. A typical example would be YouTube. We have a lean back version of YouTube, and so if you're in lean back mode and you tell YouTube who your friends are, it can anonymously use that as a signal to suggest even more relevant videos for you. Same thing for maps and so forth and so on. So our core strategy with respect to social activity is to try to make our core properties, the ones that I've talked about, more essentially better because of social information. Technically, it's another signal that we add to the matrix, and that's what our approach is. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Good evening, Eric. I'm Carlo Zacconi, working for the government in Belgium. So I want to raise one point related to one important topic for the growth of the internet. So a couple of us over here knows of the importance of the IPv6 technology within the growth of the internet and the freedom and the power of the application. Not a lot of people over here knows this important on the mobile world. What's your opinion? We know that Google for the V6 Day is ready, is pushing forward on the cable. What about the mobile?
So everybody here understands that IPv4 is the current standard of addresses, and the last block of IPv4 addresses is going to be allocated within the next 6 months. So we really have a problem in terms of addressability, and with the explosion of devices, you have this issue. Google is one of the companies that, as you pointed out, is participating in a day where we're going to test full IPv6 connectivity. And the technical problem is that if you accept an IPv6 address as a router, you have to make sure that you can route it all the way to the other end, or you will fail to make the connection, which is not okay if you're a router. So we're trying to prove that. The general consensus is that the devices that are modern, certainly the Google devices, all the other major vendors have IPv6 capabilities, and most of the modern routers fully route IPv6. There is concern about a lot of the intermediate things, the network address translation boxes, all of the other things that sit in between things that you forgot about. You plugged it into the wall and you haven't upgraded it and so forth. So we're likely to find some problems there. I believe that this is one of the great sort of urgent problems for this vision. Thank you for asking about it. The good news is the technology is there, the technology works very well, and it's just a matter of making sure that we do a number of these tests to make sure we get full IPv6 routing. We were concerned a long time ago with the explosion of, for example, IP addresses in India or China, we'd have to have a whole country or continent be IPv6. But through modern address translation, they were able to avoid that. But the time is now, we have to deal with it. In 1994, we did the math, and we said that we would run out of IPv4 addresses in 2008 plus or minus 3. It is 2011. So we're roughly right on schedule. Yes, sir.
Hi Eric, Miguel Lopez for Schmidt, Spain. You talk about the big possibilities we will have in the future with all those mobile devices and tablets. But how do you particularly see Google in 10 years, like in the Mobile World Congress in 2021?
Well, I'm sure the Mobile World Congress will be a lot bigger, and Google will certainly be a lot bigger. That's sort of the first thing I would say. Because the description that I made is, it's not a one product cycle. In your lifetimes, there are one or two technological transitions. There was the mainframe transition and the PC transition. We're now going into the mobile transition. So it's reasonable to expect that 10 years from now, the world will be even more mobile. We won't have swapped to something else. The most interesting thing that's occurring is the development of artificial intelligence on top of all the platforms that I'm describing that can help you make judgments, learn things, needle in a haystack problems. And the things that will go wow 10 years from now will probably be that in that area. I'm quite certain that the infrastructure will be built out, that the devices will work, that everyone will be all connected. What we cannot predict are the new killer apps, things that are the companies that we founded today, that 10 years from now we're going to go, oh my God, I have no idea how I live without it. Which is why this is so exciting. Yes, sir. Right?
This is Jan José, Philips Electronics, Netherlands. Question about personal healthcare. It is the cost of healthcare on the rising. How do you see the mobile devices play out in